There's no more basketball left to be played in the 2021 NBA season, and the offseason has officially been underway for a while now, so with the dust settled on the season, it's the perfect time to unleash player rankings using all of the data we have for the entirety of the 2021 season. I'll be going through each of the 5 positions, ranking the top 10 players at each spot, and last video we got things started with the top 10 point guards in the league, so today we'll be moving over to the shooting guard position. The shooting guard position went a few years lacking some top talent from the top to the bottom, but lately a lot of talented younger guys have started to emerge here, so the top 10 has plenty of big names in store. Before we start though, it turns out about 60% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Before we get into the top 10, we'll start with a few honorable mentions that just missed the cut, and the players that fall into this category are Collin Sexton, Anthony Edwards, Terry Rozier, and Andrew Wiggins. Sexton's the player I currently view as the closest to breaking into the top 10, but with all of the turmoil surrounding his current situation in Cleveland, I just really hope he gets an opportunity to show it. As for the others, Wiggins had a bit of a redemption arc this year with the Warriors, where he proved he could become a solid defender if he put in the work. Anthony Edwards really exploded in the second half of the season for his rookie year and should continue to grow into a wing scorer that can be dominant, and Terry Rozier was one of the more underrated shooting guards on the year as a whole, but even though they're all really good in their own right, they find themselves just on the outside looking into the top 10. Now, to start things off at number 10, we have CJ McCollum of the Portland Trail Blazers. McCollum's efficient, he can reliably score from all 3 levels, and he's been a solid running mate alongside Damian Lillard in the Blazers' backcourt for years now, but he's never been able to break through to the all-star caliber tier of players at the position, and that's probably what they've needed from him. The Blazers are in a weird spot at the moment, with Lillard's future potentially up in the air, and rumblings of changes being made have come about, but if the team does decide to blow it up, plenty of teams will still be interested in acquiring someone with McCollum's skill set as a shot creator. Up next at number 9, we have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of the Oklahoma City Thunder. SGA's development is so rapid, and every year he's made humongous strides individually as a player, so I fully expect him to continue to fly up this list over time. He was so good last year that the Thunder, who were trying to tank, were winning at a pace that almost had them in contention for the play-in games before SGA suffered an injury, and then they went back on a losing streak. But he's clearly ready to be the face of the team through this process until they get back on track. He's so smooth with the ball in his hands, he has tremendous touch around the rim, and his combination of shake and control allows him to get by opponents without necessarily needing blistering speed. Up next at number 8, we have Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. Brown started last year hotter than he's ever been as a player, but he did admittedly cool off as the season progressed. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to help the Celtics in the playoffs either because of an injury that he suffered, forcing him to miss the big dance, but he was named to the All-Star team for the first time in his career, so all in all, he still had a great year to build off of. He's become a leader on and off the floor for the Celtics, he's starting to emerge as one of the better two-way players at the position, and as long as he stays healthy, he's another player here with the potential to soar up this list. But at the moment, the strength of the position and the way his season ended lands him at number 8. Up next at number 7, we have Zach Lavine of the Chicago Bulls. Lavine has been a one-man show in Chicago for a few years now, desperate for some help to get the Bulls back into playoff contention, and after the offseason that the franchise just had, he is finally getting his wish. Lavine was one of the leading scorers in the NBA last season, and the team started by acquiring All-Star Nikola Vucevic to pair with him at last year's trade deadline, but now with Lonzo Ball and DeMar DeRozan also joining up with them in Chicago, we should finally get to see how he performs on a team with legitimate goals and aspirations. Up next at number 6, we have Bradley Beal of the Washington Wizards. The shooting guard spot is dominated by go-to scorers that show out in the playoffs, impact the game in a bunch of different ways, and step their games up when their team needs them to, which made ranking the top 6 so difficult. But unfortunately, Beal is who I had to place here after taking everything into account. Yes, he was the league's second leading scorer this year, but putting up a bunch of points isn't the only thing that makes a player great. And considering the situation he's in on the Wizards, being given the ultimate green light because of the team around him, I tend to favor a few of the players more team-oriented. Obviously, he's still one hell of a player, but for me personally, all of the players ranked above him have proven more where it matters. That brings us to number 5 on this list, which is Jimmy Butler of the Miami Heat. Now, believe me when I say that I know Jimmy had a poor showing in the playoffs this year, but he's still a guy who elevates the Heat on both ends of the floor and tends to make the team around him a lot better than they actually are. Plus, him leading the Heat to the finals a year ago does still mean something even if he wasn't able to follow it up with as good of a performance. The Heat, too, brought in some reinforcements this offseason by acquiring Kyle Lowry amongst others, and they will be fully expecting to get back into contention at the top of the Eastern Conference. Jimmy is ultimately who will determine how far the Heat go, because he's the guy that can be capable of leading a team on a finals run, but he's also shown that he's capable of doing the opposite too, so that is going to be interesting to watch. Next up at number 4, we have Donovan Mitchell of the Utah Jazz. If you want an example of a player who sacrifices for the sake of the team while being fully capable of putting up massive numbers, it's Donovan Mitchell. For the 1 seed Jazz this year, he scored a very strong 26 points per game on solid efficiency inside and out and in the regular season, and he's obviously their go-to guy. But what really makes Mitchell stand out as someone I had to place this high on the list is the fact that he keeps getting better in playoffs when the pressure rises. In the playoffs this year, he averaged 32 points per game, while shooting better from the field and from 3 than he did in the regular season, and even though the Jazz came up short of expectations, it certainly was not because of his efforts. Next up at number 3, we have Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns. Booker's been waiting a while to show out on the big stage of the playoffs, and this season the Suns finally made that leap, and he made the absolute most of it. Booker was sensational this year, and his explosive scoring played a massive part in the Suns making it all the way to the NBA Finals. They may have fallen short against the Bucks, but Booker himself dropped 40 points or more in back-to-back losses, so you can't say he didn't go down without a fight, and all of the narratives that had been previously running about his production being empty because of how bad his teams were vanished instantly this year. Up next at number 2, we have Paul George of the Los Angeles Clippers. I don't think anybody had a bigger turnaround this year than Paul George did. Just 1 year ago, the Clippers choked away a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets, and George himself shrank when the team needed him the most, and now he's the guy that took a shorthanded Clippers team to their first ever conference finals appearance in franchise history by beating the 1 seed along the way without Kawhi Leonard playing. Paul George gets a lot of slack by fans, but he had shown many times in the past that he could be the top dog on a contender, and this year, when the Clippers needed him to be, he stepped up and did that. With a healthy Kawhi Leonard, the Clippers very well could have won the whole thing, but George can still be happy with the way his season ended. And finally, the number 1 player on this list is a pretty obvious one, being James Harden of the Brooklyn Nets. Harden's season didn't end the way he wanted due to injury, but in Brooklyn, he's fully embraced more of a playmaker role. He's still very much capable of exploding for big scoring nights as he did on a regular basis in his time in Houston, but now his premier passing ability is much more on full display, setting up shot makers like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. He's been the top dog of this list for years now, and honestly, he'll probably be there for a while longer. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you would rank the shooting guards in the NBA now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.